Y'all, the Spook6ular is here. It is happening. And I have breaking news. Freddy's dead. That's right. They got him. Freddy's dead. The final nightmare. It's the finale of the original run of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Of course, there are 3 additional films in the series. There is Wes Craven's A New Nightmare, which takes place in an adjacent reality. I'll be watching that movie tonight. If anyone wants to watch it with me, and we'll, explore the review tomorrow morning, that would be great. There's Freddy vs. Jason, which is a sequel to this movie. So this movie is the final nightmare. And then, what was it? I think Freddy vs. Jason was like early 2000s. So like 10-something years later, they added on a new chapter. So Freddy vs. Jason is technically the final nightmare. And then you got the remake, and I'll be watching all 3 of those movies in the next coming days. And but anyway, this is the finale of the original run of A Nightmare on Elm Street. 6 films, 2 trilogies. And I gotta say, again, I've been watching one a night since, I guess a week ago now. And, it's just super fun. These movies are fucking fun. They are fun. How much more do I need to say about how much I love the dream world? How much I love, it's rife with possibility when it comes to, creativity. Right, like in the previous one, A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, they have the manga, comic book, paper thing going on. That's super cool. You got, the stairs. You got all this. Look at this candle, by the way. Whoa, look at that wax. Whoa. Anyways, that's a candle. I'm going to light myself on fire here. I got to watch out. Anyway, this movie... Now, one of the things I like about the Nightmare on Elm Street movies is there really are no protagonists or main characters. They just really don't exist, right? Look at this movie, for example. The movie starts with an unnamed character referred to as John Doe, who has amnesia, right? Winds up in an area near Springwood or whatever, finds a shelter, and then talks to someone, and then meets a bunch of friends. They die, and the fucking middle of the movie, the main character dies. And then the main character becomes Freddy's kid, who is revealed to be the shelter, guidance counselor, or whatever her position is. She's revealed to have been Freddy's kid. Freddy had a wife who he murdered and a child who was taken away from him. And that's crazy. That's crazy shit. But anyway, I love how these movies, there's really no main character, right? A lot of these slasher films, right? A lot of things you got, the main character in Halloween, for example. You've got there's always the protagonists that are always alive for way too long. A Nightmare on Elm Street doesn't fuck around with that. A Nightmare on Elm Street is you might survive into the next movie, but really you can die at any moment. And that's what I love about these movies, is that there is no one who's sacred. They can all die. If they don't die in this movie, they'll die in the next movie. Really, the only thing that we're missing is Alice. What happened to Alice in A Nightmare on Elm Street 5? Is she just living a great life? I don't know. So one of the things about this movie that I really enjoyed, Freddy's Dead, is that there's a very frequent usage of false awakenings in this movie. Now, false awakenings are in a lot of the A Nightmare on Elm Streets. If you don't know what a false awakening is, it's where you wake up, you wake up in your bed, but you're in a dream, right? So, but because you wake up, now one of the core tenets of dreams is that usually dreams, you can't trace your steps back. How did you get here? Normally when you're dreaming, you kind of end up in the middle of something going on, right? And so false awakenings are when you start your dream in bed, waking up. Now, you're in a dream, but you start your dream waking up, so you think you're in the real world. This movie does that a lot, where they have people wake up, and then, they're in this thing, and then they wake up again, and now everything is fine. But wait, now there's fire. They wake up again, right? And so I love that. As a frequent lucid dreamer, I find that to be fascinating. I love that concept. The thing about this movie as well that's interesting is we get to see Robert Englund without the Freddy makeup on, because in this movie there's some prequel scenes, some scenes that take place with Freddy, his wife, and his child before he gets burned by the Springwood parents that took place before the first movie. And so we get to see like actually what Robert Englund looks like, which is a little entertaining. And again, this movie is great. I love like the stoner kid who falls asleep on the couch and then gets sucked into the video game or whatever. I love like, now this movie was released in 1991, right? But I love that the idea, so his character is that he smoked one joint. So you smoke one joint and then everything turns into colors, right? The TV starts coming after you after one joint. In 1991, we're not talking about any of this like high potency shit that we got nowadays. 1991, you're smoking one joint and you're starting to trip. Like, that's not a thing. But this movie just does that anyway, and it's super fun. Like, I love the video game shit where like I don't know if it was on purpose. Like, all the shit was like didn't make any sense on purpose. But so Freddy is playing a video game where he's like, you know, fucking around with the one kid who's dreaming by playing a video game, and he's playing with like an Atari controller, but it's got like 2 buttons, right? But then he makes a bunch of Nintendo references, like, oh, this is the Power Glove and I'm playing with power, but he's using an Atari controller, and I don't know, I think it's hilarious. It's a mishmash. It's like, you know, can you really blame like them for like, it's a dream, like, so okay, it's a dream, there's no rules. And that's what I love about these movies, is that there are no rules. Motherfuckers are dreaming, anything is acceptable. There is no limitation when you're in the dream world. Like, if you're watching Friday the 13th part 2 and then like a spaceship comes out of nowhere, right, and then like, you know, chickens start fucking coming from outer space, you know, like in Courage the Cowardly Dog, and start like using laser eyes on shit, that's gonna be like, whoa, that's gonna take me out of the whole thing. In fucking Nightmare on Elm Street, no, that is the whole thing. You're in the Dreamverse. Anything is possible. And so I just really enjoyed this movie. My opinion is this is a great finale. Now, again, there is a sequel. Freddy vs. Jason is the 7th and final movie in this franchise. And then you've got New Nightmare, which is like an adjacent canon. But again, these are great movies. I don't know. To me, A Nightmare on Elm Street is a phenomenal addition to the classic slasher movies of the 1970s, 80s, 90s. I think this is just one of the best, because the dream world is just, there's so much creativity. My opinion, I think the death scenes in this movie, not as good as the death scenes in the previous movie, I will say. I think that the dream scenes, there's a lot of torture scenes in this movie. Like, one of the torture scenes is where the guy who asked Kramer if he ever killed a man has a hearing aid, and in his dream, like, the hearing aid gets like super powered, and then like Freddy drops a bunch of pins, right? You know the meme, like, oh, you can so quiet you can hear a pin drop. So he drops a bunch of pins, and then like the guy's like head explodes or whatever. That was crazy, you know. So there's lots of good like torture scenes in this movie, but the deaths are a little underwhelming in my opinion. Like, again, one of the kids that's being tortured is it's implied that she's like a rape victim. Like, her father would abuse her, and somehow her father died. And so Freddy, you know, plays that kind of shit over and over in her nightmares. So there's lots of good like torture in this movie. There's a lot like really gruesome torture in this movie. But not like, the deaths are kind of underwhelming in my opinion. Like, the actual deaths are kind of underwhelming. That's just my opinion. Except for Freddy dying. He had a pipe. He got like taken out of the Dreamverse because they used the same strategy from A Nightmare on Elm Street 1, where they like grab onto him and take him out of the Dreamverse and then plant a pipe bomb in his chest. That was great. That was wonderful. And I also loved when they went to Springwood and there's no kids in Springwood, and the fair had like all adults and everyone was crazy. Like, when they went to that school and there's no kids, the school's shut down, but there's someone teaching about Freddy anyway. I love the idea that the whole town went crazy. Like, that's a cool ass idea. My opinion, a little underutilized, but also really cool. And then one of my favorite parts of this movie is like, okay, so the pipe bomb blows him up. Right? The daughter is like, Freddy's dead. And then like an Iggy Pop song starts playing. And then you get like a montage of like all the movie death scenes. Right? That shit was crazy. I love the credits of this movie. Like, we're jamming out. Right? right? There's like a fucking greatest hits montage of like Freddy killing a bunch of kids. Right. It was a great ending. I love the ending to this movie. The credits may be one of the best parts of the movie. And I don't say that because it implies that the movie's over. My opinion, Freddy's dead. It's a great conclusion. It's hard to rank these movies, right? Because it's like, can you really say that 5 is better than 1? I think 5 is better than 1. But if you're watching 5 after watching 1, 2, 3, and 4, it's going to be better than 1. If you just jump in and you only watch 5, it's probably not going to be better than 1, right? So that's the thing with sequels like this, is like you have to watch them all. You really do. Like, you can just jump in and enjoy them, and there's enough context, you know, if you just want to watch a random one, just whatever, that's fine. You can watch them out of order, and that's fine. But really, the maximum enjoyment you're going to get from this shit is if you watch it with a candle on. Look at that wax. Look at that shit. That's crazy. Anyway, maximum enjoyment is if you watch them all in a row, like I am. Freddy's dead. It's a great conclusion. Now, again, next up is going to be A New Nightmare. If you haven't seen A New Nightmare, in my opinion, if you haven't seen 1 through 6, A New Nightmare, you can jump right in my opinion. A New Nightmare is like a spin-off, kind of. It's a new canon. So, like, you know, it's, you know, there's less continuity. So if you haven't been watching these with me or whatever, A New Nightmare, it's on HBO Max. All of these movies are on HBO except for 4. 4 I had to rent somewhere. But watch A New Nightmare. A New Nightmare is great. And then you got Freddy vs. Jason. And Freddy vs. Jason is a sequel to Freddy's Dead. So, keep that in mind. A New Nightmare is like a new canon, a spin-off. And then Freddy vs. Jason is part 7, essentially. And then you got the remake. So, there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed the first 6 installations of the Spook6ular. So far, I'm having a great time. And, again, I'm going to be doing some franchises. I started with A Nightmare on Elm Street. I plan on going into some other franchises as well. But I also want to do a bunch of one-offs. So if you do have a bunch of, or any movie requests or ideas, feel free to send them to me, maybe in like a week or so. You know, like, you know, I'm still going through the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, so if you recommend them to me now, I'll probably forget. But there you go. Freddy's Dead. I think it's a great conclusion. I think it works really well. And that's all I have to say. So, there you go. All right.